Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're taking a plunge into the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of dark psychology. Now, I know a lot of you are curious about how people can be persuaded, influenced, even manipulated, right?
Right.
So we've got our hands on this really interesting audiobook called, it's called La Psychologie de la Persuasion, and it promises to unlock these secrets. We're going to uncover how seemingly normal people use these tactics, figure out where the line is between persuasion and manipulation, and most importantly, give you the tools to spot those red flags and avoid getting played.
Yes.
Are you ready to dive in?
Yes, absolutely. Let's unravel those mysteries of the human psyche.
All right, so first things first, what exactly is dark psychology? Is it just about, like, evil masterminds? I mean, is it that straightforward?
Well, that's a common misconception, actually. It's not about labeling people as good or evil. It's more about understanding the psychological tools and tactics that individuals use to exert influence and control over others. It delves into the motivations and methods behind these manipulative behaviors, focusing particularly on, those who exhibit traits of what we call the dark triad.
The dark triad. Oh, that sounds ominous. Like a group of supervillains or something?
Well, it's fascinating, albeit, a little unsettling. The dark triad refers to three distinct but often overlapping personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
Whoa, okay, hold on. Break that down for me. What do these traits actually look like in real life? Like, how do I spot a narcissist in the wild?
Okay, imagine a coworker, right? Someone who's constantly taking credit for other people's work, always manipulating situations to make themselves look good no matter who they step on. It's a classic narcissist.
Gotcha. So always got to be the center of attention. Right?
Exactly. Now, picture someone who's ruthlessly ambitious, constantly scheming and strategizing to climb that corporate ladder, even if it means pushing others down along the way. That's Machiavellianism.
Of the ends always justify the means.
Right. Pretty much.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about psychopathy? I mean, that one sounds a bit more intense, right?
Yeah, this one can be chilling. Think of someone who seems to lack empathy completely, someone who acts impulsively and shows no remorse for their actions, even when they hurt others.
Wow. Okay, that's heavy stuff. And these traits, I'm guessing they're not just limited to the corporate world, right?
Absolutely not. The audiobook emphasizes that these traits, in varying degrees, of course, can show up anywhere. Think about that friend who always plays the victim, just to get sympathy.
Oh, it is that way.
Or that partner who uses guilt trips constantly to control everything you do. They might not be, full-blown psychopaths.
Right.
But they're definitely drawing on elements of the dark triad to manipulate and control those around them.
Wow, this is already pretty eye-opening. So we've met the players, the dark triad, these personality types that are prone to manipulation. But how does dark psychology actually work? I mean, what are the principles behind these manipulative tactics?
Well, the source material, it lays out 6 fundamental principles, to really grasp this whole thing.
Okay.
The first one, it acknowledges that the potential for darkness actually exists in all of us.
So we all have a little bit of Darth Vader lurking inside us.
In a sense, yeah, you could say that. But the second principle clarifies that dark psychology focuses specifically on how people exploit others. It examines the motives and methods behind those manipulations.
Gotcha. So it's not about judging someone as, like, inherently evil. It's about understanding the why behind their actions.
Exactly. The third principle highlights that this darkness, it manifests itself in these harmful habits we develop. And these habits, they can range from those subtle forms of emotional manipulation all the way to those extreme cases of violence.
Yeah, to like a spectrum, right?
Exactly. And it gets more complex with the fourth principle, which states that the severity of the dark psychology isn't just determined by the impact of actions, but by the intent behind them.
Intent, yeah.
So the source material, it gives this chilling comparison and talks about Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, wow.
Both committed horrific acts, right? But their underlying motivations, they were very different. Dahmer, he was driven by this desire for control, this need to possess his victims, while Bundy, he was driven by pure malice.
Wow, that's a really disturbing but important distinction. So the intent really matters.
Yeah.
What about the fifth principle?
Right. The fifth one delves into the potential for physical violence, stating that this potential is, it's essentially inherent in all humans. But here's the catch. Various factors like genes, upbringing, life experiences, all of those can either amplify or mitigate this potential.
So nature and nurture both play a role. What about the sixth principle?
The sixth principle is actually a bit more optimistic. It emphasizes that understanding dark psychology can actually help us reduce its influence.
Oh, so knowledge is power.
Exactly. By recognizing these tactics, we can protect ourselves and those around us.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So we're not powerless in the face of all this, right?
No, not at all. Now, the audiobook, it uses this concept called the dark continuum. Imagine a spectrum from mild to severe. It's a tool to help us understand the different levels of darkness,
So it's not just black and white, it's more like shades of gray.
Precisely. And as we go further along this dark continuum, we bump into another concept. It's called the dark singularity. Think of it as a theoretical point of pure evil.
Whoa, like the dark heart of the universe.
Kind of like a black hole. The source claims that no one fully embodies pure evil, but certain individuals, especially those with extreme psychopathic tendencies, get pretty close.
Okay, that's a bit creepy, but helpful to understand, I guess.
Right. But remember, even though we all have that potential for darkness, most of us never go anywhere near that extreme point.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But now, let's get to the good stuff. Can you give us a sneak peek into some of those actual manipulative techniques, like brainwashing or hypnosis?
Absolutely. Brainwashing, for instance, is often this multi-stage process. First, the manipulator tries to break you down, create self-doubt, maybe induce some guilt, isolate you from your support system. Basically, they want to make you vulnerable and dependent.
It's like they're trying to strip away your sense of self.
Precisely. And then they offer you salvation. They promise you hope, a sense of belonging, a purpose. They make themselves out to be the answer to all your problems.
So they take advantage of your vulnerability, offering you this false sense of security.
Exactly. And the final stage is expiation. This is where you fully adopt their belief system, You might even cut ties with your old life. Think about how cults operate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They often use these same tactics to indoctrinate their followers, turn them against their families, and make them totally dependent on the group.
It's terrifying. And it's not just limited to cults, is it?
No, not at all. These tactics can be used in everyday situations. Think about those manipulative marketing campaigns that make you feel inadequate, or those political speeches that stir up anger and fear. They're often playing on our vulnerabilities, trying to sway our opinions and behavior.
Wow, this is scary stuff. Okay, what about hypnosis? Is it really like those movies where someone snaps their fingers and you're under their control?
Not really. Hypnosis is often misunderstood. It's not about making someone do something against their will. It's more about inducing this state of deep relaxation and heightened suggestibility,
Okay.
In this state, the subconscious mind is more open to suggestions. It can be used unethically for manipulation, but it also has many legitimate applications, like in therapy.
Interesting. So it's not inherently good or bad, it's just a tool.
Exactly. The audiobook, it actually mentions military boot camps. They use hypnotic techniques to instill discipline and obedience.
Makes sense. But knowing all this is one thing. How do we actually protect ourselves from these tactics?
That's a great question, and that's where this deep dive gets really valuable. The source material, it gives us practical tools and strategies to resist manipulation. For instance, one of the most effective things is to stay grounded and focused, even when you're feeling pressured. It's like having this mental shield, deflecting those manipulative darts before they can penetrate.
Building resilience.
Exactly. And having a strong support system is crucial. Surround yourself with people who truly have your best interests at heart, people you can trust to offer honest feedback.
People who can be that voice of reason, right?
Precisely. And most importantly, trust your gut. That feeling that something isn't right, that's your internal alarm system going off. Don't ignore it.
Like that little voice whispering, something's fishy.
Exactly. Sometimes the best defense is simply to say no. Learn to set boundaries, be assertive, even when it's uncomfortable.
Stand your ground.
Exactly. And this one might surprise you, but the book recommends adopting a Machiavellian mindset when dealing with manipulators.
Wait, you mean fighting fire with fire?
Well, it's not about becoming a manipulator yourself. It's about understanding their game and playing it strategically to protect your own interests.
Okay, so being one step ahead.
Exactly. And lastly, try to understand their motivation. What are they trying to achieve? Once you see their goals, you can predict their behavior and better protect yourself.
So it's like being a dark psychology detective.
You got it. The more you understand these tactics, the more empowered you'll be in any social situation.
This is so helpful already. but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here. What other secrets are lurking in the shadows of dark psychology?
You're right, we've only just begun. There are even more advanced manipulation techniques out there, and those are even more subtle and insidious. Remember how we talked about brainwashing being like a psychological marketing campaign? Well, the source material dives even deeper into that idea, emphasizing how effective it can be because it uses consistency, social influence, and even targeted promotion. It's like they're trying to reprogram our beliefs and behaviors.
So it's like those annoying ads that get stuck in your head, and then you find yourself hunting the jingle at the grocery store, and suddenly you're buying something you didn't even know you needed.
You got it. And it's not just about the message itself, it's about how it's delivered. Remember hypnosis, it's not always about swinging watches and snapping fingers. It can happen in everyday life, often subtly and unintentionally. Think about a really charismatic leader who just draws people in. They might be using hypnotic techniques like mirroring your body language and tone of voice to build rapport and influence your behavior without you even realizing it.
So it's like a subtle dance where the leader is guiding the followers' movements without them even knowing it.
Precisely. And then there's NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, which can sound really complicated, but is actually a fascinating way to understand how language, thought patterns, and behavior are all interconnected.
It does sound a bit intimidating. Can you break it down for us? How is NLP used in dark psychology?
Well, NLP is basically a communication model, a set of techniques that explores how our thoughts, feelings, and actions are all linked. While it can be used ethically for therapy and personal growth, it can also be used manipulatively to influence someone's subconscious mind.
So it's like a powerful tool that can be used for good or evil, depending on the intentions of the user.
Exactly. And one of the key techniques they use is mirroring, which we touched on earlier, but it's worth diving deeper because it's so subtle and effective. By subconsciously copying your body language, tone of voice, even your breathing patterns, a manipulator can create a sense of rapport and trust that makes you more open to their suggestions.
It's like they're creating a psychological twin, making you feel like they're on the same wavelength, which makes you lower your guard.
Exactly. And the source material outlines a specific NLP technique called connect, copy, score, which sounds a bit manipulative, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, first, you establish a connection, building rapport and trust. Then, you subtly copy their behavior to deepen that connection. Finally, you leverage that rapport to influence their thoughts or actions.
Okay, that is a little creepy. How do we protect ourselves from these NLP mind games?
Well, awareness is key. Pay attention to your own body language and notice if someone seems to be mirroring you excessively. If something feels off, trust your instincts. Be wary of prolonged eye contact or unnecessary physical touch.
So it's about setting boundaries and being mindful of how people are interacting with us.
Exactly. And if you feel pressured to make a decision, take your time. Don't let anyone rush you into something you're not comfortable with.
Okay, good advice. So we've covered brainwashing, hypnosis, and NLP. What other manipulative techniques does the source material dive into?
Well, next up is dark seduction, which is where things can get a little tricky, especially in relationships.
Dark seduction. That sounds intense. How is it different from regular seduction?
Well, regular seduction is about mutual attraction, respect, and a genuine desire for connection. Dark seduction, on the other hand, is all about using charm, manipulation, and psychological tactics to get what you want, with little regard for the other person's feelings.
So it's not about love, it's about power and control.
Unfortunately, yes. And dark seducers often prey on vulnerable individuals, those who are lonely, insecure, or lacking self-esteem. They might shower you with flattery, attention, and gifts to create a sense of dependency, then exploit that dependency for their own selfish purposes.
It's like they're setting a trap, luring their victims in with the promise of love and affection, only to manipulate and control them.
That's a good way to put it. And the audiobook outlines specific tactics they use, like sending mixed signals, playing hard to get, and creating a sense of urgency or need that only they can fulfill. They might also use guilt trips and gaslighting to keep you off balance and under their thumb.
It's like they're constantly keeping you guessing, never letting you feel secure in the relationship.
Exactly. And dark seducers are masters of using psychology to manipulate your emotions and exploit your weaknesses.
This is pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
How can we protect ourselves from these master manipulators?
Awareness is key. Pay attention to any red flags early on in a relationship. Does the person seem to be moving too fast? Are they overly possessive or jealous? Do they try to isolate you from your friends and family?
Those are all classic warning signs.
Exactly. And always trust your instincts. If something feels off or too good to be true, it probably is. Don't be afraid to set boundaries and walk away if someone is making you uncomfortable or disrespecting your needs.
So it's about being discerning, setting boundaries, and knowing your worth.
Precisely. You deserve to be in a relationship that's based on mutual trust, respect, and genuine connection, not manipulation and control.
Well said. This has been incredibly insightful. We've learned about some really sophisticated manipulation techniques. But I'm wondering, is there an even deeper level to all of this? Can someone control our minds without us even knowing it?
That's a question that has intrigued and frightened people for centuries, and the source material delves into some mind-boggling concepts that explore this very idea. One such concept is mind viruses, ideas and beliefs that spread from person to person like a contagion, influencing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Mind viruses. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. Are we talking about some kind of psychic contagion?
It's not about literal viruses, but rather about how certain ideas can spread like wildfire, infecting our minds and subtly shaping our perceptions of reality. Think about those catchy tunes that get stuck in your head, those urban legends that everyone seems to know, or those political slogans that evoke strong emotions. These are all examples of how ideas can replicate and spread like viruses, influencing our thoughts and actions.
So we're all susceptible to these mind viruses.
To some extent, yes. We're constantly bombarded with information and ideas, and it's impossible to filter out everything. But we're not defenseless. The key is to develop strong, critical thinking skills and to be aware of the power of persuasion.
So it's about questioning information, evaluating the evidence, and not blindly accepting everything we see or hear, no matter how catchy or convincing it might seem.
Exactly. And it's also crucial to be aware of our own biases and beliefs, because those can make us more vulnerable to certain types of mind viruses.
It's like building up our mental immune system. The stronger our critical thinking skills and the more self-aware we are, the less likely we are to fall prey to harmful ideas.
That's a great analogy. And remember, not all mind viruses are bad. Some can be quite beneficial, spreading positive values, sparking creativity, and even driving positive social change.
So it's not about rejecting all ideas, it's about being discerning and choosing the ones that resonate with our values and contribute to a better world.
Exactly. And to understand how these ideas spread and evolve, we need to explore a fascinating field called memetics.
Memetics. Okay, I'm ready to have my mind blown. What's that all about?
Memetics takes the concept of mind viruses to a whole new level. It's the study of how ideas spread and evolve, much like genes and biological evolution. It proposes that ideas, or memes, can replicate, mutate, and compete for survival in the cultural environment, shaping our beliefs, values, and behaviors.
So memes aren't just those funny pictures and videos we share online. They're actually a fundamental unit of cultural transmission.
Precisely. Think about language, fashion trends, religious beliefs, even scientific theories. They're all examples of memes that have evolved and spread over time, shaping our culture and our understanding of the world.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
So how do these memes spread? Is it like a game of telephone where the message gets distorted as it's passed from person to person?
That's a fun way to think about it. Memes spread through communication and social interaction. The more an idea is shared, imitated, and adapted, the more successful it becomes in the memetic landscape.
So it's like survival of the fittest for ideas. The most catchy, persuasive, and adaptable memes are the ones that thrive and spread.
You've got it. And memetics can help us understand how trends emerge, why certain ideas go viral, and even how ideologies and belief systems evolve over time.
This is mind-blowing stuff. But how does this all relate to dark psychology? Can these memes be used for manipulation?
Absolutely. Dark psychology is full of examples of how memes can be used to influence and control people's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give us some examples of how these memetic mind games are played.
Propaganda is a classic example. Think about those wartime posters that demonize the enemy, or those political campaigns that use catchy slogans and imagery to create a sense of us versus them. They're all using memes to spread misinformation, evoke fear and anger, and ultimately control the narrative. It's like a psychological battleground where memes are the weapons of choice.
Wow, that's a powerful image. And what about advertising? Are they using memetics too?
Absolutely. Advertisers are masters at creating catchy jingles, slogans, and images that get stuck in our heads and influence our purchasing decisions. Think about those iconic brand logos, celebrity endorsements that make us crave a product even if we don't really need it.
It's like they're planting a seed in our minds, a meme that grows and influences our desires and behaviors.
You got it. And the source material suggests that memetics can even be used to create entire belief systems and ideologies. Think of cults and extremist groups, which often use persuasive narratives and rituals to indoctrinate their members and control their thoughts and behaviors.
So it's not just about influencing individual thoughts and behaviors, it's about shaping entire cultures and societies.
That's the idea. And it can be pretty unsettling to think about how memetics can be used to create these powerful, persuasive narratives that can control people's minds and actions on a massive scale.
It's like a form of mental warfare, using memes as weapons to influence and control the masses.
You're catching on. And that's why it's so important to be aware of the power of memetics and to develop those critical thinking skills to resist manipulation.
So how do we defend ourselves against these memetic mind games? Do we need to wear some kind of psychological hazmat suit?
Ha! That's a vivid image. But the best way to protect yourself is to be aware of how memes work and to be critical of the information you're consuming.
So it's about questioning everything, evaluating the evidence, and not blindly accepting what we're told, even if it seems popular or persuasive.
Exactly. It's also essential to diversify your sources of information, expose yourself to different perspectives, and break free from those echo chambers that reinforce the same limited set of ideas.
It's like getting a mental vaccine, exposing yourself to different ideas so you can build up your resistance to manipulation.
That's a great analogy. And remember, not all memes are bad.
Yeah.
Many promote positive values, creativity, and even drive positive social change.
So it's not about rejecting all memes. It's about choosing the ones that align with our values and contribute to making the world a better place.
Well said. The more you understand about memetics, the more empowered you'll be to choose the ideas that shape your reality and influence the world around you. Well, get ready to go even deeper down the rabbit hole, because the source material takes us into the world of thought forms.
Thought forms. Okay, that sounds kind of out there. Like, what are we talking about here?
Thought forms explore this idea that our thoughts and emotions, they can actually create these energetic entities, and those entities can then influence the world around us.
Hold on. So you're saying our thoughts can, like, manifest in reality. That's a pretty wild concept.
It is, and it's been around for centuries in various mystical and esoteric traditions. They're often described as these energetic entities created by the sheer power of our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs.
So, like, they're kind of like our psychological avatars going out and influencing things.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the book suggests they can have a real impact on our lives.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but how exactly do these thought forms influence us? Do they have some kind of, like, psychic power?
Well, the source material doesn't go into specific mechanisms, but it talks about the principle of resonance and attraction, like attracts like. So if we're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts and feelings, we're more likely to attract those negative experiences into our lives.
So it's like we're shaping our own reality with our thoughts.
That's the basic idea. And the book gives some examples of how thought forms have supposedly been used throughout history. Some healers believe that by visualizing positive images and sending loving thoughts to a patient, they can actually create thought forms that can promote healing.
So it's like a form of energy healing.
You could say that. Another example is manifestation. Some people believe that by focusing intensely on a desired outcome, really concentrating on it, they can create thought forms that can help manifest that outcome in reality.
So it's like the power of positive thinking, but with an esoteric twist.
Exactly. And the source material even suggests that thought forms can be used for, less positive purposes, things like curses and psychic attacks.
Okay, now that's a little spooky. Are we saying there are people out there sending negative thought forms to harm others?
Well, the book doesn't dive into that too deeply, but it does emphasize that the real power of thought forms, it ultimately lies within our own minds. We have the ability to choose the thoughts and beliefs we cultivate, right?
So it's not about fearing thought forms. It's about being mindful of our own thoughts and intentions.
Exactly. And the more we understand about this whole concept, the more empowered we are to shape our own reality, not just for ourselves, but for the world.
Okay, that makes sense. But you mentioned something about psychic vampires earlier. Are we talking about those mythical creatures that, like, suck blood?
No, not quite. Psychic vampires, as described in the source material, are people who drain our energy through their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
So like energy vampires.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Psychic vampires, they've been talked about in esoteric circles for a long time. They're often described as being chronically negative, Needy, always complaining, gossiping, or looking for attention and validation from others.
Oh, I know a few people like that, always bringing the mood down with their negativity.
Right, and the audiobook suggests that psychic vampires, they might not even realize they're having this effect on others.
So they're not doing it intentionally, they just kind of leak negativity?
Yeah, you could say that. And the source material offers some tips on how to protect yourself from these energy drainers.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do we shield ourselves from these psychic vampires?
Well, the first step is awareness. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone. If you consistently feel drained or depleted, that could be a sign you're dealing with a psychic vampire.
So trust your gut. If someone's presence leaves you feeling exhausted, that's a red flag.
Exactly. And the book gives some tips for setting boundaries and protecting your energy. One suggestion is limiting your exposure to those who are chronically negative. That might mean setting some firm boundaries with friends or family who always seem to bring you down.
So it's okay to say no to those energy-draining interactions.
Absolutely. Another tip is practicing some energy protection techniques, like visualization or meditation. Some people find that certain crystals can also help them feel more grounded and protected.
So it's about building up our energetic defenses.
Yeah, exactly. And the audiobook emphasizes that not everyone who's negative or needy is a psychic vampire. Sometimes people are just going through tough times and need extra support.
So it's about having compassion, but also knowing when to protect our own energy.
Exactly. Finding that balance is key. The more we understand these subtle dynamics, the better we can navigate relationships and protect our own well-being.
Wow, this deep dive has been incredible. We've gone from everyday manipulation to mind viruses and now psychic vampires. Is there anything else lurking in the shadows of the human psyche that we need to be aware of?
Well, there's one final frontier we haven't touched upon yet, and it's the most intense and controversial aspect of this whole realm: psychic warfare.
Psychic warfare. That sounds like something straight out of a spy movie. Are we talking about, like, psychic spies and secret government programs?
It might sound far-fetched, but psychic warfare has been a source of fascination and fear for a long time. There are stories of psychic spies, mind control experiments, even psychic assassins.
Okay, now that's a little scary. So what exactly is psychic warfare, and is there any truth to these stories?
Psychic warfare isn't about physical battles or armies. It's about using alleged psychic powers and occult techniques to influence, manipulate, or even harm others from a distance.
So it's like a battle for the mind, a clash of psychic energy.
Exactly. And it supposedly encompasses a whole range of techniques, everything from remote viewing and telepathic communication to, well, more sinister things like psychic attacks and mind control.
This sounds like some next-level dark psychology.
Yeah.
Are there any real-life examples of this psychic warfare?
The audiobook mentions some alleged historical examples, everything from the ancient use of magic and curses to modern claims about government-sponsored psychic espionage programs during the Cold War.
Hold on. Are we talking about governments actually training psychic spies to gather intel and manipulate events?
The audiobook doesn't provide any definitive proof, but it does present some pretty intriguing anecdotes and theories. For instance, there are stories about both the U.S. and the Soviet Union investing in psychic research programs, exploring how to use psychic powers for things like espionage and influencing the minds of enemy leaders.
So like a psychic arms race, each side trying to develop the most powerful psychic weapons.
That's the idea. The source material even explores claims that various occult groups and secret societies have used psychic warfare throughout history to gain power or influence events.
Okay, that's getting pretty spooky. Like secret orders of psychic assassins influencing world events from the shadows.
Well, the book doesn't go that far, but it does raise questions about whether certain groups might have used these techniques to manipulate people and gain power. Whether any of it's true, it's hard to say, but the concept of psychic warfare definitely makes you think about the potential of the human mind and the possibility of manipulation on a level we might not even fully grasp.
This is a lot to take in. If psychic warfare is a real threat, how do we protect ourselves?
The audiobook offers some advice, emphasizing the importance of developing a strong sense of self and cultivating your own psychic awareness and energy.
So it's about strengthening our own psychic immune system, so to speak.
Exactly. It mentions things like meditation, visualization, and energy work as ways to build up those psychic defenses. It's about being proactive and aware rather than being a passive victim of whatever energies might be directed at us.
So it's about taking control of our own psychic well-being.
Precisely. And remember, the book also emphasizes discernment and critical thinking, even when it comes to psychic phenomena. Not every strange feeling or thought is a psychic attack. Question things, evaluate the evidence, trust your own gut feeling. If something feels off, it probably is.
So it's about being a savvy consumer of information, even in the psychic realm.
Well said. Knowledge is power. The more we understand, the better equipped we are to navigate this complex world, both the seen and the unseen.
This has been an incredible deep dive into dark psychology. We've explored everything from everyday manipulation to these mind-bending concepts of psychic warfare. It's been fascinating, thought-provoking, and honestly, a little bit unsettling.
It certainly has been a journey, but remember, we've also learned some valuable lessons along the way.
Exactly. We've learned how to recognize those manipulation tactics, how to set boundaries, how to protect our energy. We've even learned to question what we thought we knew about the world and the power of the human mind. And most importantly, we've gained some powerful tools to protect ourselves and to use this knowledge for good.
Absolutely. Dark psychology can be used for harmful purposes, but understanding it empowers us to be more aware, more resilient, and to use this knowledge to create a more conscious and empowered world.
So it's not about living in fear, it's about using this knowledge to navigate the world with wisdom and discernment.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
This has been a truly fascinating exploration of the darker side of human nature. But as we resurface from these depths, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Now that you've had a glimpse into the dark side, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you use it to protect yourself, to empower yourself, or maybe even to shine a light into those dark corners and help others find their way?
The choice is yours. Knowledge is power, and with great power comes great responsibility. Use it wisely, and never stop exploring, questioning, and shining your light.
Until next time, fellow explorers, keep diving deep, but always remember to bring a flashlight.